The late afternoon sun filtered through the dense canopy of maple trees that lined a quiet suburban street in Portland, Oregon. The peaceful neighborhood buzzed with activity as children played on front lawns and families gathered for early dinners. Amid the lively backdrop, a small moving truck rumbled into the cul-de-sac, its bed piled high with furniture, boxes, and household items. Inside the truck's cab, Jack and Lisa Tanner, a young couple in their early 30s, exchanged nervous glances. Their 6-month-old daughter, Ruby, cooed softly from her car seat in the back. Jack tightened his grip on the steering wheel and glanced at the rearview mirror. "She's been quiet the whole drive," Lisa said softly, her gaze focused on the golden retriever sitting among the boxes in the truck's bed. "Do you think she understands?" Jack sighed. "Dogs don't think the way we do, Lise. But maybe she does." The golden retriever, Daisy, had been part of their family for 5 years. Adopted from a shelter shortly after Jack and Lisa married, she had been their constant companion through every milestone, buying their first home, navigating career changes, and welcoming baby Ruby into the world. But as Daisy grew older, her health had begun to decline, and with Ruby's arrival, the couple found themselves overwhelmed. Lisa's parents had suggested rehoming Daisy to make life simpler. "I hate this," Lisa whispered as Jack parked the truck in front of a modest house with a large yard. "I feel like we're abandoning her." Jack rested a hand on her shoulder. "We're not abandoning her. We're giving her a better life. The people here know how to care for older dogs. She'll be happy." They unloaded Daisy carefully, her leash clinking as Jack clipped it to her collar. The dog wagged her tail lazily, her golden fur catching the late sunlight. Lisa knelt beside her, running a hand through Daisy's soft coat. "You've been so good to us," she murmured. "I hope you'll forgive us." As they approached the house, an older woman with kind eyes opened the door. "You must be the Tanners," she said warmly. "I'm Mary Ann. It's so nice to meet you." Jack and Lisa exchanged a strained smile. "Thank you for taking Daisy," Lisa said, her voice cracking slightly. "She's a wonderful dog." "She'll be in good hands here," Mary Ann assured them. "We have plenty of space and other dogs to keep her company." Daisy hesitated as Jack handed Mary Ann the leash. The dog's expressive eyes seemed to plead with him, and for a moment, he almost changed his mind. But Lisa placed a hand on his arm, silently reminding him of their decision. As they drove away, the tension in the truck was palpable. Lisa stared out the window, tears streaming silently down her face. Jack's knuckles turned white as he gripped the wheel. Ruby babbled softly from the back seat, unaware of the emotional weight pressing down on her parents. "Do you think she'll be okay?" Lisa asked, her voice barely audible. "She'll be okay," Jack said, though the words felt hollow. "She has to be." Neither of them noticed the golden retriever standing at the edge of the yard, her gaze fixed on the truck as it disappeared down the street. 2 days after leaving Daisy at Mary Ann's, Jack and Lisa tried to settle into their new routine. The house felt quieter without Daisy's soft paws padding across the hardwood floors or the rhythmic thump of her tail against the couch. Ruby seemed fussier than usual, as though she, too, felt the absence of the family's golden retriever. Lisa stood in the kitchen, staring blankly at a cup of untouched coffee. Jack entered, loosening his tie after a long day at work. "You okay?" he asked, his tone careful. Lisa sighed, her shoulders slumping. "I keep thinking about her. Wondering if she's scared or confused." Jack leaned against the counter, guilt flickering across his face. "It was the right choice. She'll adjust." Lisa nodded, though her heart wasn't convinced. "I hope so." That night, as the couple prepared for bed, a soft scratching sound echoed from the front door. Lisa froze mid-step, her heart pounding. "Did you hear that?" Jack nodded, his brows knitting together. "Stay here. I'll check it out." He grabbed a flashlight and cautiously opened the door. There, sitting on the porch, was Daisy. Her golden fur was damp and muddy, her leash dragging behind her. She looked up at Jack, her eyes wide and pleading. "Daisy?" Jack whispered, his voice thick with disbelief. Lisa appeared behind him, gasping as she saw the dog. "How? How did she get here?" Daisy wagged her tail weakly, her exhaustion evident. Lisa knelt beside her, tears spilling down her cheeks. "You came back," she murmured, wrapping her arms around the dog. Jack shook his head, his mind racing. "She was miles away. How did she even know how to find us?" Lisa glanced up at him, her voice trembling. "She must have followed the truck. She came all this way to find us." They brought Daisy inside, wiping her down with a towel and offering her food and water. She ate slowly, her body still trembling from the journey. Lisa sat beside her on the floor, stroking her fur as Ruby babbled happily from her playpen. "She looks so tired," Lisa said softly. "We can't take her back, Jack. Not after this." Jack leaned against the wall, his emotions swirling. "Lisa, you know why we made that decision. We're already struggling to keep up with everything. And you think this doesn't matter?" Lisa shot back, her voice rising. "She just walked miles through who knows what to come back to us. How can we ignore that?" Jack ran a hand through his hair, sighing heavily. "I don't know." The next morning, they called Marianne to explain what had happened. "I don't understand," Marianne said, her voice tinged with concern. "She seemed fine here. She ate, played with the other dogs. But maybe she just couldn't let go of you." Lisa's heart ached at the words. "She walked all the way back to us. I don't think we can take her away again." Marianne hesitated. "I understand. But caring for her won't be easy. Older dogs like Daisy need a lot of attention and money." "We'll manage," Lisa said firmly. "Thank you for understanding." With Daisy officially back in their care, Jack and Lisa adjusted their lives to include her once more. Jack began waking up earlier to take her for gentle walks before work. And Lisa made sure Daisy had her favorite spots to rest while Ruby played. It wasn't always easy balancing a baby, work, and an aging dog, but Daisy's loyalty reminded them of what truly mattered. One afternoon, as Jack sat on the living room floor tossing a soft toy for Ruby, Daisy joined in, nudging the toy with her nose and wagging her tail. Jack laughed, his heart warming at the sight. "You really are part of the family, aren't you?" he said, scratching behind her ears. Daisy barked softly, as if to say, "Always." Despite the newfound joy, doubts still lingered in Jack's mind. Late one night, as he sat on the porch with Daisy by his side, he whispered, "Did we make the right choice? Bringing you back? What if we can't give you everything you need?" Daisy rested her head on his knee, her warm eyes meeting his. In that moment, Jack felt an overwhelming sense of peace, as though Daisy was telling him that being together was enough. Daisy's return brought a newfound sense of togetherness to the Tanner household, but the challenges of balancing work, an infant, and an aging dog began to weigh heavily on Jack and Lisa. Despite their love for Daisy, her care required more time and energy than they had anticipated. One evening, as Jack returned home from work, he found Lisa in the kitchen, her face pale with exhaustion. Daisy lay in her usual spot near the counter, her breathing labored after a difficult day. Ruby fussed in her high chair, her cries blending with the sound of pots and pans clattering. "We need to talk," Lisa said, her voice strained. Jack set down his briefcase, his brow furrowing. "What's wrong?" Lisa wiped her hands on a towel, her eyes filling with tears. "I don't know if we're doing the right thing, Jack. Daisy's getting worse, and we can barely keep up. What if we're hurting her by keeping her here?" Jack sighed, running a hand through his hair. "She's part of this family, Lisa. We can't just give up on her." "I'm not saying we give up," Lisa said, her voice trembling. "But what if she'd be better off somewhere with more resources? Somewhere she can get the care she needs?" Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden thud. They turned to see Daisy struggling to stand, her legs wobbling beneath her. Lisa rushed to her side, her heart racing. "Daisy, it's okay," Lisa said, her voice soothing as she helped the dog onto a blanket. "You're okay." But as Lisa cradled Daisy's head, her own tears spilled over. "Jack," she whispered, "we can't ignore this anymore." Jack knelt beside them, his throat tight with emotion. "We'll take her to the vet tomorrow," he said. "We'll figure it out." The next morning, Jack and Lisa took Daisy to the veterinary clinic. The waiting room was quiet except for the occasional rustle of magazines and the murmur of conversations. Daisy rested her head on Jack's lap, her eyes half closed. When the veterinarian, Dr. Harris, entered the exam room, she greeted them with a warm but concerned expression. "What seems to be the problem?" Jack explained Daisy's symptoms, his voice steady despite the knot in his chest. Dr. Harris performed a thorough examination, her brow furrowing as she listened to Daisy's heart and checked her joints. "She's showing signs of advanced arthritis," Dr. Harris said gently. "Her heart is also weaker than it should be. These are common issues for dogs her age, but they require ongoing care." Lisa swallowed hard. "What kind of care?" Dr. Harris listed medications, dietary changes, and regular therapy sessions to help with Daisy's mobility. "It's manageable," she said, "but it will require time, patience, and resources." Jack and Lisa exchanged a glance. The weight of the responsibility pressed down on them, but they both knew the answer. "We'll do it," Jack said firmly. "Whatever it takes." Over the next few weeks, the Tanners threw themselves into caring for Daisy. They set up a schedule for her medications, adjusted her diet, and even purchased a ramp to make it easier for her to climb onto the couch. It wasn't easy, there were sleepless nights and moments of frustration, but Daisy's presence reminded them why they were doing it. One afternoon, as Lisa watched Ruby crawl across the living room floor, Daisy slowly got up and joined her. Despite her aching joints, she nudged Ruby's toy closer with her nose, earning a delighted giggle from the baby. Lisa's eyes filled with tears. "She's not just our dog, Jack," she said softly. "She's Ruby's protector." Jack smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "And she always will be." Despite their renewed commitment, the couple couldn't shake the lingering question of whether they were doing enough for Daisy. The stress reached a boiling point during a family gathering when Lisa's mother voiced her concerns. "You're taking on too much," her mother said, her tone firm. "Between the baby and work, you're spreading yourselves too thin. Have you considered letting Daisy go?" Lisa's jaw tightened. "She's family, Mom. We're not giving up on her." Her mother sighed. "I just don't want you to burn out." Lisa turned to Jack, her eyes blazing with determination. "We're not giving up," she repeated. "Right." Jack hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Right." That night, as they lay in bed, Jack turned to Lisa. "You're right," he said quietly. "Daisy is family. And we'll do whatever it takes to keep her with us." Lisa smiled, her hand finding his. "Thank you." As they drifted off to sleep, Daisy lay curled at the foot of the bed, her breathing soft and steady. For the first time in weeks, the Tanners felt a sense of peace, knowing they were in this together. The Tanners' lives settled into a challenging but fulfilling rhythm as they cared for Daisy. Between work, parenting Ruby, and managing Daisy's medical needs, Jack and Lisa found themselves stretched thin but united in their efforts. However, the weight of their commitment was always present, looming over their small victories. One crisp morning, as Jack prepared Daisy's medication, Lisa noticed that Daisy seemed more sluggish than usual. Her movements were slower, and she struggled to finish her breakfast. A pang of worry shot through Lisa's chest. "Jack," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Something's wrong." Jack crouched beside Daisy, gently stroking her fur. "She's probably just tired," he said, though his tone betrayed his own concern. "We've been doing everything right. Haven't we?" Lisa nodded, but the unease in her stomach didn't subside. "I think we should call Dr. Harris." Later that day, they took Daisy back to the veterinary clinic. Dr. Harris greeted them with her usual calm demeanor, but her expression grew serious as she examined Daisy, She's developed fluid buildup around her heart, Dr. Harris explained. It's a common issue in older dogs with her condition. We can try draining the fluid and adjusting her medication, but it's a delicate process. Jack's heart sank. What does that mean for her? It means her time may be more limited than we'd like, Dr. Harris said gently. But with the right care, she can still have a good quality of life. Lisa's eyes filled with tears as she stroked Daisy's head. We'll do whatever it takes, she said, her voice trembling. Just tell us what to do. The drive home was heavy with silence. Ruby babbled in her car seat, blissfully unaware of her parents' turmoil. Daisy lay quietly in the back, her eyes half closed but still alert. Jack glanced at Lisa, who stared out the window, her hands clenched in her lap. She's not just a dog, Jack, Lisa said finally, her voice breaking. She's part of us. I can't imagine losing her. Jack reached for her hand, his own emotions threatening to overwhelm him. We'll take it one day at a time, he said. That's all we can do. The following weeks were marked by a renewed sense of purpose. Jack and Lisa took turns caring for Daisy, ensuring she received her treatments and medications on schedule. They adjusted their routines to prioritize her needs, even as their own exhaustion mounted. One evening, as Jack returned home late from work, he found Lisa sitting on the floor with Daisy and Ruby. The baby giggled as Daisy gently nudged her with her nose, her tail wagging faintly. She still has so much life in her, Lisa said, looking up at Jack with tear-filled eyes. Even after everything, she's still here. Jack knelt beside them, his hand resting on Daisy's back. She's a fighter, he said softly. Just like you. Despite their efforts, Daisy's condition began to decline. Her once bright eyes grew dimmer, and her energy waned. One morning, as Jack prepared for work, Daisy struggled to climb the stairs, her legs trembling beneath her. Daisy! Jack exclaimed, rushing to her side. He scooped her up in his arms, his heart pounding. It's okay, girl. I've got you. Lisa appeared at the top of the stairs, her face pale with worry. Jack, we need to call Dr. Harris again. Dr. Harris arrived at their home later that afternoon, her presence a calming force amidst the chaos. She examined Daisy carefully, her expression solemn. She's tired, Dr. Harris said gently. Her body is working hard to keep up, but there's only so much we can do. Jack and Lisa exchanged a glance, their hearts breaking in unison. Is she in pain? Lisa asked, her voice barely above a whisper. No, Dr. Harris said. But she's nearing the end of her journey. It's important to make her as comfortable as possible. That night, the family gathered around Daisy in the living room. Ruby sat beside her, babbling softly as Jack and Lisa stroked her fur. The weight of their love for Daisy filled the room, a quiet acknowledgement of all she had given them. You've been the best dog we could have ever asked for, Jack said, his voice thick with emotion. Thank you for everything, girl. Lisa pressed a kiss to Daisy's head, her tears falling freely. We love you, she whispered. So much. As Daisy rested her head on Jack's lap, her breathing steady but shallow, the Tanners made a silent promise to cherish every remaining moment with her. The days following Dr. Harris's visit were filled with quiet moments of reflection and love. Jack and Lisa dedicated every waking moment to making Daisy's final days as peaceful as possible. They spoiled her with her favorite treats, wrapped her in soft blankets, and spent hours simply sitting by her side. One sunny afternoon, Jack decided to take Daisy to the park she had loved as a younger dog. It had been years since they had visited, but he wanted to give her one last chance to enjoy the grass beneath her paws and the gentle breeze against her fur. Lisa joined them, carrying Ruby in her arms. They laid out a blanket beneath a tall oak tree, and Daisy rested beside them, her tail wagging faintly as she watched other dogs play in the distance. She looks happy, Lisa said softly, running her fingers through Daisy's golden fur. I think she knows how much she's loved. Jack nodded, his throat tight. I hope she does. That evening, back at home, Daisy seemed unusually tired. She lay curled in her favorite spot by the fireplace, her breathing shallow but steady. Jack and Lisa sat on the floor beside her, their hearts heavy with the knowledge that her time was drawing near. As the night wore on, Daisy lifted her head one last time, her eyes meeting theirs with a look of pure love and gratitude. Jack stroked her gently, his voice trembling. "You've been so good to us, Daisy. It's okay to rest now." Tears streamed down Lisa's face as she whispered, "We'll always love you." With a soft sigh, Daisy laid her head back down and closed her eyes. The room fell silent except for the crackling of the fire and the faint sounds of Ruby stirring in her crib. The loss of Daisy left a void in the Tanner household that was impossible to fill. Her absence was felt in the quiet mornings, the empty space at the foot of the bed, and the stillness of the living room where she had once napped. But even in their grief, Jack and Lisa found solace in the memories she had left behind. "She taught us so much," Lisa said one evening as they sat on the porch, watching the sunset. "About love, loyalty, and what it means to be a family." Jack nodded, his eyes misting. "She brought out the best in us. Even when things were hard, she reminded us of what really matters." A few weeks later, Lisa received a package in the mail. Inside was a framed photo of Daisy, along with a small note from Dr. Harris. The note read, "Daisy was more than a pet, she was a testament to the love and care you gave her. Thank you for giving her the life she deserved." Lisa placed the photo on the mantel, her heart swelling with both sorrow and gratitude. "She'll always be with us," she said, her voice steady. Jack wrapped an arm around her, his gaze fixed on the photo. "Always." One day, as they strolled through the park with Ruby, Lisa noticed a small dog sitting alone near a bench. Its fur was matted, and it looked timid, but there was something familiar in its eyes, a quiet plea for love and safety. Jack followed her gaze and smiled faintly. "What do you think?" Lisa knelt beside the dog, holding out her hand. The dog hesitated, then inched closer, its tail wagging tentatively. Lisa looked up at Jack, her eyes shining. "I think Daisy would have wanted this." Jack nodded, his heart full. "Then let's give this one a home." As they walked back to the house with their new companion in tow, Ruby babbled happily, and the dog trotted beside them, its eyes bright with hope. The Tanners knew they couldn't replace Daisy, but they could honor her memory by continuing to share the love she had inspired in them. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the world in golden light, Jack and Lisa felt a sense of peace, knowing that Daisy's legacy would live on not just in their hearts, but in the lives they continued to touch.